Marcus woke slowly, like rising from deep water. The first thing he noticed was the absence of pain. His shoulder should have been screaming. His legs should have been burning. Instead, there was only a gentle warmth spreading through his body. He opened his eyes and saw the stars. The ceiling above him was transparent, showing the endless black of space dotted with distant suns. He lay on something soft, softer than anything he had ever felt, in a room that seemed to be made of light itself. "You are awake." Marcus turned his head. The Empress sat beside his bed, her crystalline form catching the starlight and breaking it into rainbows. She looked different than before. Smaller, somehow. More tired. "Where am I?" Marcus asked. His voice was rough, like he had not used it in a long time. "My ship," the Empress said. "The Eternal Resonance. You have been healing for 3 weeks. 3 weeks." Marcus tried to sit up, panic flooding through him. "My job. My daughter. I need to." "Your employment has been terminated," the Empress said calmly. "Your employer did not appreciate the damage to station property. Your daughter is safe. I have had people watching her." Marcus stared at her. "You've been watching my daughter?" "You protected mine." The Empress's voice was soft. It seemed appropriate. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He remembered the lattice, remembered its warmth and its fear and its desperate hope. That box, it was your daughter? Her consciousness. Her memories. Her soul, if you believe in such things. The Empress looked away, toward the stars. "She died defending our homeworld during the Kethmer War. I was able to save what made her who she was. The lattice has been my most precious possession for 300 years." Marcus did not know what to say. He had held someone's daughter in his hands. He had bled for her without knowing who she was. "Why did you do it?" the Empress asked. She turned back to him, and her eyes held genuine confusion. "You did not know what the lattice contained. You had no reason to risk your life." "Why?" Marcus thought about the question. He thought about that moment in the corridor when he had picked up something precious without understanding why. "It felt like someone needed help," he said finally. "I don't know how else to explain it. Something about the way it pulsed. It felt alive. It felt scared. And he shook his head. "I have a daughter. She's 13. Lives with her mother on a colony 3 systems from here. I miss her every day. And when I held that lattice, I thought about what I would want someone to do if it was her. If she was alone and scared and needed protection." The Empress was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, heavier. "You have been declared Kethvalor," she said. "A witnessed one. It is a title that has not been given to anyone outside our species in 10,000 years. It means I owe you a debt that cannot be repaid." "I don't want a debt," Marcus said. "I just want to go home." "Home to what?" The Empress tilted her head. "You have no job. You are behind on payments to your former mate. Your daughter barely knows you because you are always working, always trying to send money you do not have." The words stung because they were true. Marcus had spent years grinding himself down, trying to provide for a daughter he rarely saw. And what did he have to show for it? A clean card and a rented room and a hole in his heart. "I want to understand," the Empress said. "Your species, humans, you live such short lives. You are so fragile. And yet you throw yourselves into danger for strangers. You sacrifice everything for people you do not know. I have ruled for 500 years, and I do not understand it." "Neither do we sometimes," Marcus admitted. The Empress leaned forward. "Serve me for 1 year, 1 standard year. Not as a guard, as a companion, an observer. Help me understand your kind. In return, I will fund your daughter's education. I will move her to a safer world. I will give her every opportunity you have dreamed of giving her." Marcus's heart clenched. Everything he had worked for, everything he had sacrificed, offered to him on a silver platter. All he had to do was spend a year with an alien empress who wanted to study him like a specimen in a jar. "Why me?" he asked. "You could study any human." "Any human did not bleed for my daughter," the empress said simply. "You did." Marcus thought about his little girl, about her smile in the video messages she sent every month, about the birthday parties he missed and the school plays he could not attend. He thought about giving her a real future instead of the scraps he could barely afford. "1 year," he said. The empress nodded. "1 year. And during that time, you will serve as my personal guard in name. You will attend court functions. You will meet my advisors and nobles. You will show them what a human can be." "I'm just a janitor," Marcus said. "You are a janitor," the empress corrected. "Now you are Cathfuller. Now you are something more." She stood and moved toward the door. Before she left, she turned back one last time. "There is something you should know," she said. "The assassins who attacked the station, they were not random. Someone in my court sent them. Someone wants me dead, and they wanted to destroy the lattice to hurt me. Now that you have interfered, they will want you dead too." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "You're saying I have a target on my back." "They're saying I have a target on my back. I am saying you have entered a game you do not understand. A game with players who have lived for millennia and have no mercy for those who threaten their plans." The Empress's eyes met his. "But I am also saying that you are not alone. I witness you, Marcus Cole, and I will not let them destroy you." She left. Marcus lay in his bed of light, staring at the stars, wondering what he had gotten himself into. Somewhere in the ship, safe in its container, the lattice pulsed gently. And if Marcus listened carefully, he could almost hear it whispering a word that sounded like gratitude. Marcus Cole had cleaned toilets on 17 different space stations. He had mopped floors covered in alien vomit, scrubbed walls stained with substances he could not name, and once removed a dead creature from a ventilation shaft using nothing but a mop handle and sheer determination. Nothing in his 38 years of life had prepared him for this moment. The alarm screamed through the corridor like a dying animal. Red lights painted everything in blood colors. Marcus stood frozen with his cleaning cart, watching chaos unfold around him. The Valkyrie guards lay on the floor. All 12 of them. Their crystalline bodies had turned dark, like someone had switched off the light inside them. They were still breathing, Marcus noticed, but they could not move. Some kind of poison in the air, maybe. Something that affected their species, but not his. He should run. Every instinct told him to run, but there was something on the floor between the fallen guards. A small box made of material that looked like frozen starlight. It pulsed with soft colors, blues and golds, and something that had no name in human language. Marcus did not know what it was. He only knew that the guards had been protecting it with their lives. Footsteps, heavy and fast. Coming from both ends of the corridor, Marcus was not a soldier. He was not brave. He was a divorced father who worked double shifts to send money back to his daughter on a colony world 3 systems away. He had no weapons, no training, no reason to care about alien artifacts. But something about that box called to him. Something about the way it pulsed reminded him of a heartbeat, of something alive and scared and alone. He picked it up. The box was warm in his hands, warm like a living thing. And in that moment, Marcus felt something he could not explain. A presence, a whisper of emotion that was not his own. Fear, hope, love, the feelings of someone who had been waiting in the dark for a very long time. The assassins appeared at both ends of the corridor. 6 of them. They wore black armor and carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. They were not Valkyrie. Marcus did not recognize their species. Tall, thin, with too many joints in their limbs. "Give us the lattice, human," one of them said. Its voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Give it to us and you can live." Marcus looked at the box in his hands. The lattice, they called it. He still did not know what it was, but he knew, with absolute certainty, that he could not give it to them. "No," he said. The word surprised him. It surprised the assassins, too. They looked at each other, confused. Why would a human janitor die for something that meant nothing to him? "You are making a mistake," the assassin said. "Probably," Marcus agreed. "I make a lot of those." They attacked. Marcus had no training, but he had 17 years of surviving on colony worlds where life was cheap and violence was common. He had learned to fight dirty because fighting clean got you killed. He threw his cleaning card at the first group of assassins. The heavy metal frame caught one in the chest and sent it tumbling. Marcus ran toward the wall panel and smashed it with his elbow. The fire suppression system activated, filling the corridor with thick white foam that blinded everyone. In the chaos, Marcus moved. He knew this station. He had cleaned every inch of it. He knew which panels were loose, which doors stuck, which maintenance shafts connected to which rooms. An assassin grabbed his arm. Marcus bit it. The creature screamed and let go. Its blood tasted like copper and something bitter. He ducked into a side corridor, but 2 more assassins were waiting. One of them shot him. The energy bolt hit his shoulder and spun him around. The pain was incredible, like someone had pressed a hot iron into his flesh. Marcus fell against the wall, clutching the lattice to his chest. The assassin raised its weapon for the killing shot. Marcus kicked. The maintenance drone beside him. The small robot, confused and alarmed, activated its welding torch and spun wildly. The assassin stumbled back, its armor melting where the torch touched it. Marcus ran. The next few minutes were a blur of pain and desperation. He took 2 more wounds. One in his leg, one across his ribs. He left a trail of blood on the floor he had cleaned just hours ago. But he did not stop. He could not stop. The thing in his arms pulsed faster now, its light flickering with fear, and Marcus whispered to it without knowing why. "It's okay," he said, his voice rough with pain. "I've got you. I've got you." He found a storage room and barricaded the door with everything he could move. Then he sat in the corner, curled around the lattice like a man protecting his own child, and waited. The assassins tried to break through. They shot the door. They pounded on it. Marcus held the lattice and listened to his own heartbeat mixing with its gentle pulse. 11 minutes. That was how long he held them off. 11 minutes until station security finally arrived, alerted by the alarms he had triggered. 11 minutes of blood and fear and desperate determination. When the door finally opened, it was not assassins who entered. It was Valkyrie soldiers, their crystalline bodies bright with alarm. And behind them, a figure that made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. She was taller than the others. Her body was made of crystal so pure it seemed to contain galaxies. She moved like music made visible, and her eyes held the weight of centuries. Empress Tethanara of the Valkyrie sovereignty looked at the human, janitor bleeding on the floor of a storage room. Still clutching her daughter's soul to his chest, Marcus tried to speak, tried to explain. But the blood loss was too much, and darkness was pulling at the edges of his vision. The last thing he saw before unconsciousness took him was the Empress kneeling beside him, an immortal being who ruled 1,000 worlds, kneeling in the blood of a human janitor. The last thing he heard was her voice, soft with an emotion he could not name. "I witness you," she whispered, and then there was only darkness, and the gentle pulse of something precious held safe against his heart. 6 months passed, and Marcus learned what it meant to walk among immortals. The Valkyrie court was a place of beauty and cruelty. The nobles moved like living art. their crystalline bodies catching light and throwing it back in colors humans had no names for. They spoke in voices like singing glass, discussing politics that had begun before humanity learned to make fire, and they hated Marcus. Not openly. The Valkyrie were too refined for open hatred, but Marcus felt it in every room he entered. In the way conversation stopped when he approached, in the whispers that followed him through marble halls, in the looks that said, without words, that he did not belong. "They think you are a pet," Empress Tethanara told him one evening. They stood on a balcony overlooking a city made of crystal spires. Below them, millions of Valkyrie lived their ancient lives. A curiosity, a brief amusement that will burn out and be forgotten. "Am I?" Marcus asked. The Empress did not answer. Instead, she said, "Tell me about your daughter." It was a question she asked often. Marcus had shown her pictures, shared video messages, described birthday parties and first steps and the sound of a child's laughter. The Empress listened to everything with an intensity that was almost frightening. "Her name is Elena," Marcus said, as he had said many times before. "She's 30 now, smart. Too smart for her own good. She wants to be an engineer. Build ships that can cross the galaxy." "And her mother?" "Sarah." Marcus's voice grew heavy. "We tried. For years, we tried. But I was always working. Always sending money. Never there. She found someone who could be there. I can't blame her for that. You blame yourself. Every day." The Empress turned to look at him. Her eyes held something Marcus had never seen before. Understanding. "My daughter was called Keth-Ira," she said softly. "She was young by our standards. Only 800 years old. She laughed like starlight, and she loved to dance among the nebulae. When the Kethmer attacked, she led the evacuation of 3 colony worlds. She saved 2 million lives. And then she died, buying time for the last transport to escape." Marcus did not speak. There was nothing to say. "I have lived for 5,000 years, the Empress continued. "I have watched stars die and civilizations rise and fall. But nothing has ever hurt like losing her. Nothing ever will. I'm sorry," Marcus said. "So am I." The Empress looked back at the city. "I kept her lattice close because I could not let go. Could not accept that she was gone. But you, Marcus, you held her without knowing what she was. You bled for her. You fought for her. And I realized something." "What?" "That perhaps the length of a life matters less than how it is lived. Your species lives what? 80 years? 100? The blink of an eye by our standards. And yet you love so fiercely. You fight so desperately. You throw yourselves into death's path for strangers." The Empress shook her head. "We have forgotten how to do that. We have lived so long that we have forgotten what it means to truly live." The weeks that followed changed something between them. Marcus was no longer just a curiosity. He was a teacher, though he did not know what he taught Dodd at a trade negotiation that had stalled for 3 days. Marcus told a joke. It was a terrible joke, something about a priest and a quantum physicist walking into a bar. The opposing delegation, a species called the Morthi, stared at him in confusion. And then, slowly, they began to laugh. They laughed until their bodies shook, until the tension in the room broke like a fever breaking. The treaty was signed that afternoon at a diplomatic dinner. Someone tried to poison the atmosphere with a toxin deadly to Valkyrie. Marcus barely noticed. Humans had evolved on a world that was constantly trying to kill them. Their bodies had learned to handle a lot. He kept talking, kept smiling, while Valkyrie guards collapsed around him. By the time he realized something was wrong, he had already dragged the Empress to safety. "Why did you not fall?" a noble demanded afterward. "The toxin should have killed anything with a respiratory system." Marcus shrugged. "I grew up on a colony world with bad air. This wasn't even the worst thing I've breathed this week. The nobles did not know what to make of him. This fragile mortal creature who shrugged off poisons and told jokes that ended centuries-old conflicts, who treated the Empress not as a divine being but as a person, who cried openly when he talked about his daughter and was not ashamed of his tears. And then the message came. Marcus was in his quarters when his communication device activated. The face that appeared was not one he recognized. A Valkyrie noble, but wrong somehow. His crystal form was dark, almost black. "Human," the noble said, "you have become a problem." "I've been called worse," Marcus replied. "You think you are clever. You think you are safe because the Empress protects you. But you have something more precious than your own life, don't you? Something on a colony world, 3 systems away." Marcus's blood turned to ice. "Your daughter is in our hands now," the noble continued. "Leave the Empress. Return to your own kind. Forget everything you have seen and learned. Do this, and the child will be returned unharmed." The screen went dark. Marcus stood alone in his quarters, his hands shaking. His daughter, Elena, in the hands of monsters who had already tried to kill once. He thought about running, thought about begging, thought about doing exactly what they wanted, and then he thought about what kind of father he wanted to be. What kind of man? The shaking stopped. Marcus Cole had cleaned toilets on 17 space stations. He had survived colony worlds that killed the weak. He had bled for a stranger's daughter without hesitation. Now, someone had taken his daughter. They had made a terrible mistake. The Valkyrie court expected Marcus to run. They expected him to beg, to bargain, to collapse into the emotional weakness they believed defined his species. Instead, he walked into the Empress's throne room and asked for a ship. "They have my daughter," he said. His voice was calm. Too calm. "I'm going to get her back." "This is what they want," the Empress said. "They want you to leave, to remove you from my side. I know. If you go, you will likely die. The criminal underworld of Ashkar 7 is not a place for what?" Marcus interrupted. "For humans? For janitors? For fathers?" He shook his head. "With respect, Your Majesty, you don't know what humans are capable of when you threaten their children." The court watched in silence. They saw a small, fragile creature standing before an immortal empress, demanding resources for a suicide mission. They thought he was insane. The empress saw something else. She saw the same fire that had burned in his eyes when he held her daughter's soul against assassins. The same desperate determination that had kept him fighting when any sane creature would have surrendered. "You will have your ship," she said. "You will have resources. What else do you need?" Marcus smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "I need to make some calls." The criminal station known as the Hollows floated in the dark space between systems, where no law reached and no government claimed authority. It was a place of smugglers and killers, of desperate souls and dangerous deals. The Valkyrie avoided it. Their crystalline bodies were valuable, and their long lives made them cautious. Humans, however, thrived in chaos. Marcus arrived alone, wearing clothes he had not worn in years. The outfit of a colony worker, rough and practical. He walked into the station's main bar and ordered a drink he could not afford. Within an hour, he was no longer alone. They came from the shadows of human society. A pilot named Jackson, who had flown smuggling routes through war zones. A hacker named Yuki, who had stolen secrets from a dozen governments. 2 former soldiers, Chen and Rodriguez, who had left the military under circumstances they did not discuss. A medic named Sarah, who had saved lives in places where saving lives was illegal. They were outcasts, criminals, the humans that polite society preferred to forget existed. They were also Marcus's friends from another life. A life before the divorce, before the custody battle, before he became a janitor on distant space stations. "You look terrible," Jackson said, sliding into the seat across from Marcus. "Someone took my daughter," Marcus replied. The table went silent. In that silence, something passed between them, an understanding that required no words. These were people who had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. People who had been told their whole lives that they were worthless, and they were very, very angry. "Tell us everything," Yuki said. Within 3 days, they had a location. The kidnappers were holding Elena on a moon in a nearby system, in a compound designed to be impossible to breach. 40 guards, defense systems, sensors that would detect any ship within 100 kilometers. "It's a fortress," Chun observed. "We'd need an army." "We have something better," Marcus said. "We have humans." The plan was insane. It relied on timing, luck, and the kind of desperate improvisation that only humans seem capable of. It should not have worked. They dropped out of hyperspace in a cargo container, hidden among legitimate shipments. They crawled through maintenance tunnels too small for most species to navigate. They disabled security systems using tricks, learned in a dozen different wars on a dozen different worlds. And then Marcus walked into the compound's main hole, alone, and surrendered. "I'm here for my daughter," he said to the guards who surrounded him. "Take me to whoever's in charge." They beat him. Of course, they beat him. Marcus had expected that. He had planned for it. Every minute they spent hurting him was a minute. His team used to get closer to Elena. The noble who had sent the message appeared eventually. Lord Kethmaros, the Empress's own cousin. He looked at Marcus with something like pity. "You came alone," he said. "How very human. How very stupid." "I came for my daughter," Marcus replied through bloody lips. "That's all that matters. She's been well treated. She doesn't even know she's a prisoner. Children are resilient that way." Kethmaros leaned closer. "I'm going to kill you now, human. And then I'm going to send your daughter back to her mother with a message. The message will say that humans should never interfere in Velkari affairs again. Can I say goodbye to her first?" Marcus asked. Kethmaros considered the request. It amused him. Why not? Let her see what her father's foolishness has cost. They brought Elena to the hall. She was 13 years old, with her mother's eyes and her father's stubborn jaw. When she saw Marcus, bloody and broken on his knees, she screamed, "Dad!" "It's okay, baby," Marcus said. "It's going to be okay. I need you to do something for me. I need you to close your eyes and count to 10. Can you do that?" Elena was crying now. "Dad, what's happening? Why are you? Trust me, sweetheart. Close your eyes. Count to 10. She closed her eyes. She started counting. 1, 2, 3. The lights went out. Yuki had reached the power grid. 4, 5, 6. Gunfire erupted in the corridors. Chun and Rodriguez were coming. 7, 8, 9. Marcus moved. His hands had been bound, but Rodriguez had taught him how to dislocate his thumb years ago. Pain screamed through his hand, but his arms were free. He grabbed the nearest guard's weapon and fired. 10. When Elena opened her eyes, her father was standing over her, surrounded by fallen enemies, holding a weapon he had taken from a guard twice his size. "Daddy's here," he said. "I'm never leaving again." The escape was brutal. Marcus took more wounds. He did not stop. He carried Elena through corridors full of fire and death, his team clearing the way ahead of him. They reached the ship with seconds to spare. As they jumped to hyperspace, Elena looked at her father. Blood covered his face. His hands shook from pain and exhaustion, but his eyes were clear and bright. "You came for me," she whispered. "Always," Marcus said. "I will always come for you." In his pocket was a data chip Yuki had extracted from the compound's computers. Evidence, names, proof of who had ordered the kidnapping and why. Lord Kethmaros thought he understood humans. He thought they were weak, emotional, easily manipulated through their attachments. He had made a terrible miscalculation. He had not threatened a human's possession. He had threatened a human's child, and now a father was coming for him. The Chamber of Eternity was the oldest structure in the Volcari sovereignty. It had stood for 50,000 years, through wars and disasters and the rise and fall of empires. Its walls were made of crystal that had formed in the heart of a dying star. Its ceiling showed the light of galaxies that no longer existed. Today, it was filled with every noble in the realm. Hundreds of crystalline beings, ancient and powerful, gathered to witness judgment. Marcus stood before them all, holding his daughter's hand. He was still injured. The medic on his team had done what she could, but some wounds needed time to heal. His face was bruised. His arm was in a sling. He walked with a limp that might never fully go away, but he was standing. And that was enough. Lord Kethmaros stood on the other side of the chamber, surrounded by guards. The evidence Marcus had brought back was undeniable. Records of the assassination attempt. Communications with the kidnappers. Plans that stretched back decades, all aimed at removing the Empress and seizing power. "You have been found guilty of treason," Empress Tethanara said. Her voice echoed through the chamber like the ringing of a great bell. "You conspired to murder me. You ordered the destruction of my daughter's lattice. You kidnapped a child to manipulate a guest under my protection. What do you have to say?" Kethmaros raised his head. Even now, facing judgment, his eyes held nothing but contempt. "I acted for the good of our people," he said. "You have allowed this human to corrupt everything we are. He stands in sacred halls. He speaks to you as an equal. He teaches you to think like his dying species, to feel as they feel, to value what they value. I tried to stop this corruption before it was too late." The nobles murmured. Some of them agreed with Kethmaros. Marcus could see it in their eyes. They believed humans were a contamination, a disease that needed to be purged. The Empress raised her hand, and silence fell. "Before I pass judgment," she said, "I would hear from the human." Marcus had not expected this. He had expected to stand quietly, to let the Empress handle her own court. But she was looking at him with something in her eyes that he recognized. Trust, that he let go of Elena's hand and stepped forward. 100 immortal beings watched him, this fragile creature with his broken body and his short life. "I'm not good with words," he began. "I'm a janitor. Or I was. I clean things. I fix things that are broken. That's what I know how to do." He looked around the chamber, meeting eyes that had watched civilizations rise and fall. "You've lived for thousands of years. Some of you for tens of thousands. You've seen things I can't even imagine. And somewhere along the way, you forgot something important." "And what is that?" a noble called out. "What could a creature who lives less than a century teach us?" "How to die," Marcus said simply. The chamber went silent. "My species lives about 80 years if we're lucky. Every human knows, from the time they're old enough to understand, that they're going to die. That everyone they love is going to die. That everything they build will eventually crumble." Marcus touched his injured arm. "I've taken a lot of wounds in my life. I've been shot, stabbed, poisoned. Every scar on my body is a reminder that I'm fragile, that I could end at any moment. And this makes you stronger?" The noble's voice dripped with disbelief. "Yes," Marcus said, "because when you know you're going to lose everything, you learn what really matters. You learn to hold tight to the things you love. You learn to fight for them with everything you have, because you know you won't get another chance. He turned to look at Elena, still standing where he had left her. My daughter is the most precious thing in my universe. I would die for her without hesitation. Not because my life doesn't matter, but because hers matters more. That's not weakness. That's love. Love, another noble said, as if tasting a strange food. This is what you teach our Empress? To love as humans love? I teach her nothing, Marcus said. She already knew how to love. She loved her daughter so much that she kept her soul alive for 300 years, hoping for another moment together. She loved her people so much that she has devoted millennia to keeping them safe. He looked at the Empress. What I showed her is that love doesn't disappear when people die. It doesn't fade with time. It burns brighter because we know it won't last forever. The Empress rose from her throne. The movement was slow, deliberate, and every eye in the chamber followed her. Lord Kethmaros spoke of corruption, she said. He believed that humans would weaken us, make us less than what we are. But I have watched Marcus Cole for nearly a year now. I have seen him laugh and cry and bleed. I have seen him risk everything for a stranger's daughter, and then risk everything again for his own. She descended the steps from her throne, moving toward Marcus. We have lived so long that we have forgotten how to truly live. We protect ourselves so carefully that we never risk anything meaningful. We have become so afraid of loss that we have stopped loving anything worth losing. She stopped in front of Marcus. The chamber held its breath. 10,000 years ago, we had a ceremony called the selection. It was reserved for those who showed us something we had forgotten, those who reminded us what it meant to have a soul worth fighting for. She turned to face the assembled nobles. Today, I invoke that ceremony. I select Marcus Cole as Kethathara, voice of the throne. He will sit on my council. He will help guide our people. Not because he is strong or clever, but because he is brave in a way we have forgotten how to be. The nobles erupted, some in outrage, some in confusion, some in something that might have been wonder. In all their long lives, none of them had seen anything like this, but the Empress was not finished. And as for Lord Kethmaros, her voice turned cold. He will spend the rest of his existence in the crystal prison, watching time pass without ever being part of it again. Let him learn what it means to be truly immortal, to live forever with nothing to live for. Guards led Kethmaros away. He went silently, his eyes empty of everything except shock. Later, in a quiet garden beneath an artificial sky, Marcus sat with Elena while the Empress watched them from a distance. "Dad?" Elena asked. "Are we staying here?" "For a while," Marcus said. "The Empress has offered to educate you. Best schools in the galaxy." "Is that okay?" Elena thought about it. "Will you be here?" "Every day," Marcus promised. "I'm done being away. I'm done missing your life. From now on, wherever you are, that's where I'll be." Elena leaned against him, careful of his injuries. "I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart." The Empress approached, her form casting rainbow shadows in the garden's light. "She will do well here," she said. "The first human child educated alongside our own. She will change things as her father has." "I didn't mean to change anything," Marcus said. "I just did what needed to be done. That is what makes you remarkable." The Empress sat beside them, an immortal being sharing a bench with a janitor and his daughter. "You do not act for glory or power. You act because it is right. Because someone needs help. Because a child needs protecting." She looked at the artificial sky, at the stars her people had studied for millennia. "I have ruled for 500 years. I have seen warriors and scholars and diplomats beyond number. But I selected you because you showed me something none of them could." "What's that?" Marcus asked. "That a soul is not measured by how long it burns," the Empress said, "but by how brightly. And yours, Marcus Cole, burns brighter than any star I have ever seen. Elena had fallen asleep against Marcus's shoulder. He held her gently, this precious child he had almost lost, and thought about everything that had brought him here. A janitor from a backwater colony. A father who had nearly lost everything. A human who had stumbled into an alien court and somehow become something more. They called us fragile, he said softly. They called us brief. The Empress nodded. And what do you call yourselves? Marcus looked at his sleeping daughter, at her peaceful face and her steady breathing. He thought about all the humans who had ever lived and died and loved and fought and hoped. We call ourselves survivors, he said. We call ourselves fighters. We call ourselves dreamers, he smiled. But mostly, we just call ourselves parents. And that's the most powerful thing in any universe. The Empress watched them for a long time. The human father and his human daughter. And for the first time in 300 years. She felt something she had forgotten was possible. Hope.